This training will go over forms from the left navigation. Let's select More and then select Forms. Here you will see a list of forms that you currently have built. Please note that by default, only standalone forms are first displayed when you enter into the Forms module. If you want to see all of your forms, select this green filtered button and then clear out any filters. And at this point, you will see all forms, even forms linked to a registration. A couple of features to note within this main view. To add a new form, you can select this Add New button, or you can select New from the toolbar and then select Form. Right next to the Add New button is the button titled Embed. If you select this provides you with the HTML code that you can copy into your website so that you can display a list of all of your available forms to people within your congregation. I'll select this hosted URL to give you an idea of what this will look like on your church webpage. As you can see from this link, there is a list of all forms that have been listed and made public for your congregation. They can select the form and then fill out the information. You'll notice that the form has already auto-populated fields based upon my profile, and that's because I'm logged into the system. If someone is not logged into the system, then these fields will not be auto-populated for them. Now that we're back in the software, let's close out this Embed Link tool. You'll notice there's two tabs, one Listing, one Settings. If we select Settings, this will allow us to modify the image that we saw on that hosted listing page. Let's jump back over to Listings. Let's take a look at a form that I've already built so that you can see information about the form and how it's structured. And then we will build a form together. Let's go to this Contact Us form. As you notice within this form, this is the general layout. And you see here is the form, and then here are the additional fields that you can add to the form. Along the top, you see two tabs, Submissions and Settings. Let's look within Submissions. And then you see the option Summary and Entries. Summary gives you an aggregate view of how everyone completed the form. But let's jump over to Entries. This gives us a list of everyone who completed the form. The one thing to keep in mind, forms will not automatically create people profiles unless you have an automation set up. And that's as it relates to our automation suite. And I'll go over that in another training session. If you would like to email or communicate the people who have filled out the form, you can select this Actions button. And then you can see that you can either export the information or send an email or a text message. Let's jump over to the Settings tab. There are some sub-tabs within Settings. One is General, Notifications, Automations, and Custom CSS. If we look within the General section, we see an area titled Confirmation Message. This allows you to put a little bit of information that will be displayed on the page after the form is submitted. Now, to send an automatic reply message to anyone who has filled out a form, we would do that within the Notifications sub-tab. Let me select that. And as you see here down at the bottom, there's an option for confirmation email. If I select yes, then I can craft the email that I would like to send to anyone who completes the form, as well as I can include a PDF attachment of how they completed the form. If you would like to inform individuals within your church when someone submits the form, you can add their email within this section here in the default routing section. The Automation tab allows you to send people who submitted the form to an automated workflow that you have built. And then the Custom CSS tab allows you to add CSS to make sure that the styling of these forms best fit the brand of your church and how your website is designed. Let's jump back over to the Fields tab. A few other options before we start to build a form. Each form has its own URL. You can see that located here. And it also has a public page. If you look over to the right at this Share section, you'll see that we can view a public page of this form specifically. And this is different from the view that we saw where it had all of the forms highlighted. This is just displaying this specific Contact Us form. Let's jump back over. You have some social sharing options as well. And then if you look at the overview, there's also an embed button here. This is different than the embed button located within the form list, this provides us a way to embed just this form specifically into our church website. If we select this button, it provides us with the HTML code that we can copy and paste into our church's website. You have a couple of other options here, a way to categorize your forms. This merchant account is as it relates to receiving payments through forms, and that's only available if you have One Church Giving enabled. And then you can choose whether or not you want to make this form listed or unlisted by selecting this yes, no button, as well as you can set a max number of submissions. If you only want this form to be submitted 50 times before it turns off, you just put that number within this max submissions field here. Now let's go back out into the main section of forms to create a custom form, and I can highlight some other features of using the forms module. Select forms. Now let's add a new form. If we select add new, here we can name the form. We also have the option to choose a category. If you've created categories, then you just need to select this down button to choose from the categories that you've already created. Or if you select this cog icon, you can add new categories or edit the list of categories that you already have created. Let's select the create button to create this new form. Now we have a blank form that we can start adding fields to help us collect information from individuals that interact with this form. If we want to add an image to this form, we can just select this pencil icon here at the top and then upload an image that we have already built. If we want to add a description to this form, we can hit this pencil icon here and add a description. Select done. You can see in the default, it already adds a field to collect someone's first and last name. Now, if you hit this pencil icon, you can edit this information and you can select that you want to collect more than just their name. Maybe you want to collect their email, phone number. You have these various options, and you can also decide whether or not this is required or not. If you don't want to include profile information at all, you can select this no button. And now we have a completely blank form. But let's go back and add the profile information. Now, as you can see here on the right, these are various fields that you can add to the form to collect whatever type of information that you want to collect. If you need examples of each of these fields, then you can navigate over to our Help Center. We have an article labeled How Do I Design Forms? And in this article, it goes over each of these fields and gives you an example of what they look like displayed within your form. We'll highlight a few within this tutorial, but if you have a more sophisticated form, you may want to use different field options that I don't go over in this training. So in this sample form, I'll add a checkbox list and give people a few options from which to choose. So I'll just select this checkbox list, provide a label for this section within the form. After I add a label, I can add a description, and you see there are a few options that I have. The option that you'll interact with most is the one that determines whether or not this field is required. If it's a required field, select yes. If not, select no. As I scroll down, you see I have a list of choices from which to choose. I can type these in manually, and then I can select this plus button to add more, as well as I can do a bulk upload. If I want to do that, I select the bulk add button and then type in the various options. Select done. Now you see the list of options that I have. If I need to delete one of these options, I can select this X icon. If I want to change the position of how these options are displayed, I can just select this hamburger icon and drag this up or down. I can also choose to alphabetize this list, and then I select done. At this point within the form, you see the list of options that are available to you. Now let me add another field. This will just be a general text field. Adding the label at the top, I can also choose to add placeholder text. One other option that's available within this text field that I want to add that I didn't mention earlier is the option to make this conditional. Maybe you only want this field displayed based upon how they answer this first question. If you want to do that, select the yes button, and then from this drop down, select the field that determines when this other field is made visible. Currently, we only have one, the which do you like better field. So let's select that. And if they choose option 1, then I will display this tell us more field. Select done. Now you can see within the form, I have these 3 questions, as well as this third question is conditional and only based upon how they answer the question, which do you like better? This form is currently unlisted. To make it listed, I just need to select this yes button. And whenever you're creating forms, make sure you always save them to make them visible. Another field that I'd like to highlight for you is the repeating section field. This allows people to create a new field within the form if they need to put additional information. So let's select this option so I can show you what it looks like. And I will label this name of guests. Can provide a description if I choose. And then I can add a field. Now, this is allowing people to add whichever field I select. So if I say text field, then with a click of a button, someone filling out this form can add multiple text fields. And here's what I mean by that. I'll select text. The label is names. I'll put placeholder text in here. And that just provides placeholder text within the form when someone fills it out to maybe give them an example of how you want them to populate this field within the form. And then I'll select add. You see that I have this names field here. And let me show you what that looks like on the form in a live state. So I'll select done. Once again, make sure you save this. Now let's view the public page. Remember, I did not add an image to this, but you do see the various options. Remember, I had a conditional field, so if I select option 1, that conditional field opens up. And then I have this repeating section. And if I click the button add item, then I can add that field. And if the user needs to add another option, they can just select this button again, and it will continue to repeat and create that field for them when collecting information. Let's jump back over to the form builder. Now, this was just a general training to get you caught up to speed with how to set up a form. If you have more complex forms and if you have questions for us, feel free to reach out via the chat widget located on the bottom right. Or you can jump over to our Help Center by selecting on your name in the top right and selecting Help Center to find more information on how to set up a form that you need to set up for your context.